Hey guys, welcome back to Transmit to 1075. Here we are again. I keep going through videos to try to find something new to sort of expand on some of the discussions I've had already. And you can look at all those critiques on the channel here. Please do. However, I keep bumping into the same problems. It's sort of like the fundamentals never stop being broken. And so here I am again going to do a video about something I've essentially done a few other times, but these issues don't seem to go away. So let's discuss it again. I promise you we'll dig in further and get a little wider at some point, but every time I find something that inspires me, I feel like I'm talking about the same thing. Anyway, today we're going to talk about multiple things, including technique and things, use of the deck gun, proper hose, picking your proper line, whether it be a master stream or a hose or whatever. But anyway, let's get started here. By the way, this is a volunteer department in a rural area. I think there's an old timer running the pump panel. So we're going to point out some of the mistakes he's making, but I'm not going to pick on these guys. I've seen these mistakes everywhere, including in career departments. So I'm not going to pretend it doesn't happen everywhere, but it gets a little embarrassing here, but let's start it off. All right, so we have a fully involved auto repair place. This happens a lot. They're soaked in fossil fuels. Guy breaks the light bulb, drops gas on a motor, whatever it is. It's a pretty typical common incident.
We have a fire on Konkoma Avenue in Lake Ronkonkoma.
All right, so look, I'm also going to state for the record here, I always classify these fires, in this particular case you'll see, is like if no one showed up, would the incident be any different, or would the outcome be any different? And the answer to that is no. This building is off, it's lost. If no one showed up or the guys do the best job, it's the outcome is essentially going to be the same. I would also point out, and I know this doesn't happen, but I am telling you, with one engine and 3 guys that know what they're doing, I could handle this entire incident. We could handle this entire incident by ourselves. I'm just pointing it out because, again, it really does come down to fundamentals and come down to the first engine doing the right thing at the right time, choosing to go in a certain direction can many times and almost all times change the outcome of the incident. And if the first guys don't do what's right initially, it's lost. Furthermore, look, this is nothing's going to change here, like I've said, but I will point out you really should become proficient at your job. Because let's just assume in this case, there was someone on the rooftop working there and is trapped, and you need to do something to alter the course of history. If you're getting nervous, if you can't remember how you're doing things, if you're hooking things to the discharge when it should be the intake, and so on and so forth, you could kill somebody. And so I use these things as an example because guys really need to fine-tune. Take pride in your job and fine-tune your skills. I think this is a great idea. You have this much volume of fire, nobody's at the window. Grab a hydrant and do a forward lay into the fire scene so that you have a water supply and can go to town.
Fire department's just getting here.
So I just want to point out in this scenario I'm suggesting where me and 2 other guys could put this fire out by themselves is we pull up. There is one, I drop my one guy off at the hydrant. He's going to hook up to the hydrant and stay there. And when we get the water supply, when we get the supply line hooked to the rig, charge it, and then come back down to the fire. So there's one of the 3 guys.
Getting the lines out right now. Get the situation under control.
Now, back to my deck gun. Guys, there isn't a better scenario here when this should be the instantaneous thought process in your mind. Like, I would have gotten out of this rig and been on the top of this. If I was in the back, I would have been on the top of the roof of this rig in 5 seconds. And so that's primarily what they should have done. You could have 1,000 gallons of water. I'm guessing. My guess is this rig holds 1,000 gallons. And by the way, I'm doing most of this for young guys who don't know any better that are learning. I realize most guys understand all this, but like, look, you got 1,000 gallons of water, 750. Maybe if it's a rural community, you got even more. Dump the water and try to change the trajectory of this fire as quickly as possible. Every second that goes by, it's potentially getting bigger. The sooner you can change that course, the better off you are. So let's proceed. So now, if in my scenario of 3 guys, guy number 1 is at the hydrant, guy number 2 is going to go to the roof of the engine, to the deck gun, and then the chauffeur, the driver, the engineer is going to pull tank to pump and pull deck gun. All right, forgive me for a second. This is locking up.
It's a mechanic shop. Looks like an Amco.
All right, so are we sending someone to the deck gun? No. Now, the other thing I would argue, and I think this gets lost a lot of times, obviously water supply is extremely important, but in my view, in most cases, get the first line of the deck gun, start flowing water. Flowing water is priority number 1, and then immediately after that, get the water supply. So again, perfect world with my 3 guys, man is on top of the roof, deck gun, chauffeur charges the deck gun. Now the chauffeur runs to the back, disconnects the supply line, hooks it to the intake, and then you wave to your guy down the road to supply the supply line, and you're done. You now you got a deck gun flowing 750 per minute, 1,000 gallons per minute, and you have an unlimited water supply.
You're getting water lines going right now. Open up to the hydrant. Water should be flowing any minute now.
Again, water is important. That's not the priority. The priority is getting the first line, getting water on the fire. So we would have had water already from the deck gun for 10 seconds already, and at this stage of the game, we're not putting any water. And granted, I agree 10 times already, this building is lost, not changing the trajectory, but the point is you operate to the best of your ability and do the best that you can, because there may be a circumstance where, again, somebody was on the rooftop, someone's dying, and every moment counts. Okay, we've changed. Someone's realized that, hey, the deck gun would be a good idea here. Sorry for stopping so much, but I want to add another thing. Again, this is frustrating to me because I see this happen. I've been to 100 fires where this happens. So let's just say we pull 1 3/4 inch, okay? When 1 3/4 inch is pulled and nothing happens, you pulled the wrong hand line. If your chief or your whoever thinks that you need to pull multiple 1 3/4 inch lines, you're choosing the wrong hand line. If you even choose a 2.5 and you start squirting water into the building and nothing is changing, you've likely pulled the wrong option. So again, keep that in mind, guys. It's so important. Being quick, being diligent, being good at your job, and choosing the right attack strategy.
Mechanic shop.
All right, deck gun is being deployed. Now, again, for you chauffeurs out there, new drivers, we're going to be able to point out 4 or 5 things here that are done wrong here. Again, this is an old timer. God knows, maybe he's under a lot of pressure here, and maybe he's doesn't respond very often, just happened to be driving that day, or who knows what the circumstance. So number 1, deck gun, tank to pump was pulled, Now your deck gun has been pulled. You want to increase your pressure before you open the deck gun, okay? So you should do this on every line, but increase pressure, turn it up, get the engine. You should hear the motor, the RPMs increasing. I actually like to go pretty strong with this. So there's a couple things. One, you can lose a prime actually if you don't have anything. All the deck gun throws out the water and you lose prime. But the other thing is you don't have this dribbling of water and you're wasting water, assuming you're still working on tank water. You want every ounce of water to hit this thing. I actually one time drove a rig and the guys had left and I on the engine that we had, it was pneumatic. You could control the I was actually the chauffeur. I was there by myself. I went to the pump panel. I pulled tank to pump. I pulled the deck gun. I ratcheted up the pressure. The valve was closed here because it was pneumatically controlled from the roof. I climbed up here, and I hit that button, and the water left the engine and struck the building in the fly. Not 1 ounce of water hit the ground, and I was operating for that 750 gallons. Okay, let's keep going.
Gas tanks are exploding.
Okay, so we're still a little late to the game, and we're still not flowing proper water. What's going on here? Why do we not have... Why is this... Oh, now... Either had the valve half pulled, or maybe the tank, the pump, or the refill was on. I don't know why, but we now have full pressure. And as you'll see next, you'll see the next problem. So my guess is this is flowing 500 GPM, 500 gallons per minute, maybe something closer to 750. I don't know. Could be a lot higher if you had a bigger tip. All right, guys, so we're still watering the garden of the neighbor in the back. Why is this? I don't know exactly, but this is my guess. I'm rather certain this is the case, and I'm sure many of you guys already know this thing. So let's explain what's going on here for you young guys that should know and understand how to use a deck gun. This is your typical deck gun. This is a safety feature, this pin, okay? So this deck gun that's on the roof of that fire engine can be used on the top. It's mounted, it's hard mounted and secure and stable, and you can do whatever you want. However, if you disconnect it here, make it a portable master stream, and you then lower this deck gun to being level, right? For every action, there's a reaction. Well, the water's shooting in one way. If you have it level, horizontal, it's going to push that deck gun horizontally, and the thing's going to go flying backwards or push you or potentially flip over and hurt you, damage you. A lot of these have safety mechanisms when that happens. But anyway, you don't have that problem when you're on top of when it's mounted to the roof of the engine. So there's a little rotating handle that if you followed this up over here, you grab this with one hand, you pull the pin up, and then you you turn that handle and it spins, and you lower it past. Once you've passed that point, you don't have to hold the pin anymore. But until you do so, this thing is not going to lower. And so until you do that, it's going to shoot water across the neighborhood. So that's what's happening here. He can't lower this deck gun because he hasn't pulled the pin. All right, here's your off-duty firefighter or whatever the case may be that is well aware of what I'm discussing, and he's going to jump up there and solve this problem. Now, while this is happening, in theory, you could shut the water off so you're not wasting it.
His hands burn pretty bad.
But they have a water supply, and so I guess it's not the end of the world. All right, so now we're operational. We are at the, what, mark, 3 minutes, okay? Some of this video is them getting there, whatever, but, you know, we've lost a minute or two, at least, where you could have been flowing 750 gallons of water.
It's shooting up.
All right, now we've slammed the discharge of this 2.5 open. Not the end of the world, but since we're pointing out things that aren't being done properly. I'm also going to notice here, my guess, so this is going to flow water and just dump water onto the ground the entire time we're here. Now, under the circumstances where this deck gun is operating rather well, I love the pressure they have. This is fantastic. But in other circumstances, it's generally not a great idea to just have water dumping onto the ground. And so why is this happening? My guess is this. In my day, things have changed in the last 5 years, I think. But in my day, anything up below the steamer cap, right, was an intake. So anything from here down was an intake, and here above was a discharge. So generally, when you follow this around, I would argue that this is in all likelihood a discharge, and I think that it is. It's not always the case now. You can't just use that rule, because I've seen rigs being built now where discharges are below the steamer cap. Anyway, my guess is when everyone was nervous and panicking here, they were going to hook the supply line to this. They pulled the cap off and hooked it to the discharge, and it's not an intake, it's a discharge, so they had the wrong thing, and so they brought it to the side and hooked it to the side. So, guys, I have seen this happen a zillion times. I don't know why, but this is a regular mistake happening on fire scenes when guys are panicking. Learn your rig, know what the difference between a discharge and an intake is, know where they are, and make sure you hook it to the right thing. Furthermore, this shouldn't just be dumping ground. So my guess is they had the wrong one, they pulled the valve or whatever, and now instead of closing it, it's still cracked and it's still dumping water. Again, it's not going to change the outcome of this fire, but do the right thing. Now, a couple things. In my scenario, what I would have done in the world when we're at the LA riots and this rig is all by itself, and like told you, we only got 3 guys. That guy was at the hydrant, guy was on the top, chauffeur, engineer, pulled the deck gun and charged the deck gun, and we basically spend 95% of our time putting this entire fire out with the deck gun. Once the chauffeur then breaks the supply line, hooks it to the side, and we have a water supply, I call that guy from the hydrant to come down here. And at some point, at the end of this fire, I pull an 1 3/4 line, and all I do is go around this whole building, and I hit hot spots that can't be accessible. And so this is the last thing I'm going to say about the deck gun and operating the deck gun is, in your mind, get into a 3D space of how things are working. So in this case, the deck gun is at the same level, essentially, as the roof. So all this fire that's inside here, you just don't have the right angle to get underneath, okay? So a lot of times, if it's lower, I would like to squirt water up high, get all the fire that's burning here, and that steam and water will drop down, okay? And you look for hot spots and things that make the most sense. In this case, since you can't really access this, I would spend the time knocking the cars down, which are probably most of the fire inside here. Utilize the angle that you have, that you've been given, to the best of your ability. Make that, use the water that you have and the resources. I love the deck gun. It's like being at the end of a 50 caliber machine gun. It's exhilarating and fun and powerful, and you can knock out windows and blow through walls and push things around. It's awesome.
taping off the scene right now. Gentleman who was burned over there on the left-hand side, trying to find out what caused the fire, what started it. Yes, sir.
All right, guys, just stretching another line. In my view, it's fine. I think ultimately you can, like I've said 10 times already, you could address this building with the deck gun and one line. And I'm lazy. I don't want to keep pulling more and more and more hose off the rig, and then you have to spend 2 hours after you're tired and exhausted repacking lines and doing things. Anyway, that's essentially it. If you have any comments or suggestions or whatever, please add them. I also have so many videos here, so many critique videos, but I also used to buff in Crown Heights, New York for many years, and so I have some old school firefighter videos. Be sure to check them out. I'll put some in the description, but you can find them in the different channels of this channel, I guess the different groups. But anyway, thanks for following along, and we'll catch you at the next one.